Hello everyone, in this video we are revisiting another alleged case of a UFO crash and one which is probably far more important than it seems at the first glance. This incident took place on the 13th of June 1933 near the northern Italian town called Magenta in the region of Lombardy. This incident was relatively unknown outside the country in which it occurred until very recently, and that is until last year when it was highlighted by David Grush during his testimony before the US Congress. According to his statement, this particular crash of a UAP was the earliest case which he was cleared to talk about.
So let's start from the very beginning. You say it's a 90-year cover-up.
Just about, yeah.
90 years?
1933 was the first recovery in Europe, in Magenta, Italy. They recovered a partially intact vehicle.
Why is this particular event so important then? Well, let's start with a bit of a historical and geopolitical background. In 1933, Italy was ruled by the regime of Mussolini, already in power for a decade, while the world at large and Italy itself were still at peace, and would remain so for 3 more years. This regime saw a report of an unknown aircraft which crashed near the town of Magenta, as we mentioned before. As military services were informed, they arrived to recover whatever was left after the crash. The Italian soldiers in charge who arrived at the scene quickly figured out that the craft was originally most likely lenticular-shaped, or in the well-known shape of the flying saucer, but the crash reduced the craft to a bell or an acorn-shaped object, a detail which we will mention later as well. What remained of the craft, originally approximately 10 meters or 33 feet in diameter, was recovered and taken away to a secure air facility. The initial reaction of the Italian military and of the government was to see if this could be some form of a military aircraft prototype. The most probable guess behind what seemed like some sort of an advanced vehicle with strange shape and no obvious means of propulsion was Germany. However, after contacting Berlin, this option was excluded. No other prosaic reasoning remained, so in the case of the hypothesis of a non-human origin as a probable source of the craft, the regime in Rome informed Pope Pius XII about the event. It remains a subject of speculation how much Vatican got to know back then, but it certainly did know something relevant, all things considered. Mussolini himself apparently created a special unit dedicated to the studies of the craft and entrusted with further field operations should more similar crashes occur on the Italian soil. This group is mentioned in the official Italian documents with the descriptor RS/33. The press was suppressed by the government and was prohibited from publishing stories regarding the event. The group involved directly Mussolini himself, his son-in-law and foreign minister of the Italian government Galazzo Ciano, just to name a few people here. The protocols outlined in the official documents for the handling of the case eerily resemble those applied later on in cases like the famous Roswell crash, i.e. witness arrests, media debunking and strict utmost secrecy within the state apparatus. Curiously, the documents include drawings of what seems to be 2 types of observed craft, one being the typical flying saucer shape and the other being a cigar-shaped craft. In the meantime, Italy swerved onto the path of war, first with Ethiopia and then Albania, which was annexed in 1939, followed by the participation of the country in World War II. It was presumably sometime during this period that Pope Pius XII contacted Washington, D.C. and informed President Franklin Delano Roosevelt about the mysterious craft still in possession of the Italian military. Thus, during liberation of the Italian peninsula from the fascist regime at some point in late 1944 or early 1945, the American army came into possession of the Magenta UFO. A secret operation was conducted intended to transport the crashed vehicle to the USA. The story remained largely unknown until 1996, when an Italian UFO researcher, Roberto Penotti, who received the original secret documents from the 1930s containing a protocol and official notes regarding the event itself, as well as other UFO sightings from the 1933 to 1940 period, came forth. He received the documents from a person named as Mr. X. In order to make sure that this is not some kind of a prank or a hoax, Penotti ordered forensic testing of the documents. The paper and the ink used in the documents were authentic as used in the 1930s. The preserved templates of telegram messages from the period, for example, also matched those found in the documents. The authenticity of those documents was also indirectly mentioned by Lou Elizondo, who has recently published his book Imminent on the Involvement of the USA in the UFO Matters. Speaking of, I have mentioned that the USA has not only retrieved the craft itself at the end of World War II, but also the protocol concerning handling UFO crashes. This opens a very deep rabbit hole of what sounds like a giant conspiracy theory involving the former director of Central Intelligence and the head of the CIA during the early Cold War era, Allen Dulles, and his legacy, which was later passed on to the hands of the Bush presidential family, Dick Cheney, and so on. Dulles himself apparently had connections to the Italian foreign minister Galazzo Ciano, just to begin with, as well to the Vatican. There is a lot of private grassroots research done on the subject recently, and it can be found on Reddit if you are interested in this angle. Feel free to search what is available and see what you make of it. I have also added a link to one of the more extensive studies of these connections. Lastly, as a curiosity, we should go back to the shape of the craft. The bell-shaped description of the more or less intact part of the crashed UAP oddly resembles that of the infamous Die Glocke, one of the alleged Wunderwaffe or wonder weapon projects Nazi Germany worked on in later stages of World War II. There have been rumors about the prototypes of such a vehicle, possibly even functional ones. It begs a question whether the regime in Berlin could have been read in by Rome into the secret project started after the Magenta crash, and whether there is a possible link to the alleged Nordic aliens and fascinations of the Nazis with this race. Of course, this is purely speculative, if not outright a conspiracy theory, and I am mentioning here mostly as a curio. While an entertaining theory in itself, I personally do not see any clear evidence behind it, at least compared to the more tangible evidence like the available documentation issued by the Mussolini's regime. I admit that this video has just scratched the surface and people in the UFO community are uncovering still as we speak everything regarding the event, the connection it seems to involve, and the prototype procedure for dealing with UFO UAP incidents, for example, seems to be the mother of all similar cases which have been recorded since then. And what do you make of this case, dear viewers? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I will see you again in another video very soon indeed. Take care.